Howdy folks, AJ coming at you again, your resident vintage gamer. Today we've got a couple little things to talk about. We're going to start out with, for those of you that have played the old paper and pencil Dungeons and Dragons, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, that type of thing, this will be interesting to you. If not, this may not be the video for you, but you're welcome to sit and we're going to talk about a couple of things afterwards, but the main meat of this is going to be about this particular book. Some of you may recognize this. It's the original Deities and Demigods book from TSR that was produced for use with advanced D&D, but you could use it with basic D&D, it didn't matter. But at any rate, this was the book that was kind of the source material to go into any kind of deity or specific god worship for your character. So let's say that you had you were playing a warrior, and there's different what they call pantheons of deities in this, where you have anything from Arthurian to Chinese to all these different pantheons of deities, Egyptian, whatever, and you could go through and kind of find certain deities and gods that would their specialty, let's say, the people that they liked to represent in the game were warriors, and then you could choose which one of those you wanted to be your deity in the game. And so anyway, this was what the original title was. This particular one is not the first printing. This is where it gets interesting with this particular book. There was the original printing, which I have here, and I have a cover on it because it's actually quite a collector's item. I've got a cover on it to protect it. And the reason it's a collector's item is that there are two pantheons in this original first printing that I have here that are not found in any of the subsequent printings. And the reason is TSR thought they had permission to use those because they were intellectual property of other people, and they thought that they had actually gotten permission from one was H.P. Lovecraft, and then I forget the name of the other author who wrote the Elric series, and they had gotten their permission, but it turned out they had already sold the rights to somebody else for those intellectual properties, so they didn't really have the permission to give anymore. This other publisher actually would have been the one to give the permission, and TSR did not get that. So after the first printing, there was, of course, legal action that went back and forth, and the bottom line was TSR decided any printings after that, they would just leave them out because they didn't want the legal hassles. So in this one, you have that you won't find in any of the other printings is the Cthulhu pantheon, which was H.P. Lovecraft was the author. And then the other one was the Melnibonian, I believe I'm pronouncing that correct, which was the Elric series. And I don't remember the author's name of the Elric series. And those are novels, if you are interested in looking that up. And I may even put a link, the Wikipedia page for both of these, for the H.P. Lovecraft and the Elric stuff, just in case for anybody that's curious that wants to look them up. So what I did is I carefully put some Post-its here to kind of hold the spots. So this is the front page of the Cthulhu Mythos that goes into the different deities and so forth for the H.P. Lovecraft works, and then this is for the Melnibonian. Again, I think I'm saying that correctly. This is just so everybody knows I'm telling the truth and that I do actually have a first edition. And this is the one that references Elric, and Elric is actually the main character in the books, and he's actually outlined in here. And what's kind of neat about this book, and both of them for that matter, but if you were able to find a first edition one, and you'd have all of them, what's kind of neat about the whole thing is that, and I've used these over the years, there's been movies that have come out about certain mythical heroes and figures. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One, King Arthur, the other being Thor. And in both of those instances, I went and in these books, and they and if you're wondering why I've got two of them, I bought this one because once I realized that was a collector's edition, I decided to get a second one. This is the one I would use whenever we would game, so that this one would get the wear and tear, and that one would be protected. That's just the kind of moron that I am. You know, that's the way I think. Anyway, so I've referenced them after seeing movies about King Arthur and so forth, and you go and a lot of what you will see on the screen will actually be represented in the book, and it's kind of neat because it gives what the publishers thought their stats of the heroes, say King Arthur for instance, and Merlin, what their stats, and they're both in the book, what their stats would be if they actually were to be used in a game of D&D. So if you were actually to somehow, if somebody was DMing and they actually decided to throw in Camelot somehow that as part of the campaign, and you were actually to make it to Camelot in the game or whatever, and you could meet them, you would have something to reference to know how powerful they were. And of course they're quite powerful, but you'd have a guide to go by, and then there's also narrative that describes them, what their special abilities and so forth is. And then in the case of some of them, like for Thor, it even outlines his hammer and why it is that only he can wield it, and what the special properties of it would be, and all that type of thing. It all goes into detail and all that, and it does that for several of these different types of mythos: Greek, Chinese, Egyptian, Arthurian, which is what they call the King Arthur mythos. And there's a whole bunch of them. And so, and I'll probably put a Wikipedia link for just the Deities and Demigods book in general, if you're just curious about the book. So anyway, I've used this when I've been DMing. I've used it just when I've seen a movie and they're talking about. I mean, there's been movies, The Mummy and stuff like that, where they talk about Ra, the king, the god Ra, and some of those, and they're in the book too. You can just go look them up, and just for curiosity's sake. And so that kind of outlines the Deities and Demigods book. And this is going back. The original printing was in 1980, and there's, for the newer editions of Dungeons and Dragons that have come out, version 3.0 and 3.5 and 4.0, there's newer editions of, they changed the name for a while to Legends and Lore, and then they went back to the Deities and Demigods title. So there's variations out there. But if you're really in it, if you're an older gamer and you didn't know about that first printing, and you're interested, I'm sure they're for sale on eBay and stuff like that. So anyway, that covers the Deities and Demigods book, pretty much. The next thing I wanted to talk about real quick was I had one of my viewers who, he's also a vintage gamer like me, similar in age, and he has started having trouble with carpal tunnel and arthritis and that type of thing from gaming for so many years, and he was wondering if I was going to ever talk about it or address it. And so I thought the first thing I did is I went online just to see if I could find any material, about older gamers that have been gaming for 30 years or so, 25, 30 years, whatever, 20 years, 25, 20, 30, to see if there was any, ongoing data about, if they're more prone to getting arthritis from manipulating controllers and the mouse and all that, versus other people, and there isn't hardly anything out there. I couldn't find hardly anything out there. So, luckily, I've been pretty lucky. I'm a chronic knuckle cracker, and I've kind of stopped that because I've had, some doctors and stuff say, that there's no concrete evidence, but they believe that, that can cause arthritis and so forth. And so, as gaming is my passion, I don't want to do anything that's going to, take away, my ability to continue gaming as a hobby and all that. I do have an old wrist injury, and I don't know if it'll show up on the camera. Let's see here. Yeah, you can see this. I've got this cyst right here, and that is that's from falling off of about a 8-foot wall when I was a kid and landing on my wrist. And I'm pretty sure I broke my wrist, or at least tore some tendons or something, because it was pretty badly damaged. And my dad was old school. This was 1975 or something like that. And my dad was old school. He came home and I'm there with ice and, and everything, and thinking he's going to take me to the hospital or whatever. And he told me to rub some dirt on it and walk it off, So I never went to the doctor for it. And so now it does, from time to time, it will rear its ugly head, and that tendon and so forth will flame up, and that kind of bothers me when I'm gaming and everything. But I, being the hardcore guy, I just power through it. I'm not going to let it stop me. So that may, as I get older, in another 20 years, when I'm in my 60s, who knows? That might be a big issue, but I, who knows? So, for my viewer that was asking about that, I wish I had more data to go into and everything, but I just don't. If I find additional stuff in the future, I'll certainly add it in a future video and talk about it. And then the last thing I wanted to cover was I've been playing Skyrim a lot, and again, I'm about a year behind everybody else because a lot of other people forked out the $60 right when it first came out last year and everything. And of course, I was stubborn and waited for a good Steam sale and got it 50% off because I had a lot of other things to play anyway. So, but now that I've been playing it, it's all that and in a bag of chips. And so one of the things I really like about it is that they've definitely incorporated, in addition to having like the dungeon crawls and all that, you're going and trying to get quest items out of dungeons and all those types of things, and just the exploration of it and everything. The thing that really impressed me was that they incorporated a lot of what I call city adventures, in that like when you get to the one city, and I don't want to give any spoilers or anything, so for anybody that for some reason hasn't played it, like even worse than me, that's still holding off or whatever, I'm not going to give out names and stuff like that. I'll just say in general, there's there's a particular city you get to, and they start you out on a quest line, and you get involved with these people in the city, and there's more quests, and I mean it's very involved and engaging to keep you in the city and actually do some what I call city adventures. And the reason I like that is because when I would DM, when I was a dungeon master, for D&D or whatever, there were nights with the group that I was DMing for that they would be just in for the whole night. They'd end up doing city adventures, and I didn't always start it out. That wasn't the plan always, but you kind of adapt as you go, and so I would just kind of go with it once they started going down a certain path of, saying, hey, I want to, do this, I want to talk to the bartender, and it kind of goes into something else, and then another character says, hey, I want to, talk to this barmaid or whatever, and then a fight starts, and I mean, it just, and it kind of just snowballs, and next thing you know, they're having a whole night's worth of adventure just in the city. And so I actually kind of got good at that, at coming up with ideas for city adventures, and the players really enjoyed it. Instead of just saying, "Oh, we're going to go out and go hit another dungeon," it was something different. So I just wanted to say that I wanted to applaud the makers of Skyrim for kind of having that concept in their game. So anyway, I'm going over 15 minutes here, and that's one of my longer videos. So anyway, if you've got any feedback on any of this, if you've got any questions and so forth, please put them in the comments below. If you like the video, please rate it thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed and you want to, go ahead and subscribe, and we will catch you on the flip side.